Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6. I'm going to be doing verses 16 to 19. Numbers 16 to 21. 19 to 21. So yeah, Narada Muni, he was meditating, and then he saw Lord Vishnu, Krishna, and then Krishna disappears. And then these verses Krishna speaks. When Narada Muni starts hankering for just to see Krishna. Alright, let's do the Sanskrit for this. Didrikshustadaham bhuya pranidhaya manohridi vikshamano pinapashyan avitripta ivatura didrikshustadaham bhuya pranidhaya manohridi vikshamano pinapashyan avitripta ivatura. Didrikshustadaham bhuya pranidhaya manohridi vikshamano pinapashyan Didrikshustadaham bhuya pranidhaya manohridi vikshamana pinapashyan avitripta ivatara didrikshustadaham bhuya vikshamana pinapashyan Let's get over to it together. Didikshu, desiring to see, tat, that, aham, I, huya, again, pranidhaya, having concentrated the mind, mana, mind, didi, upon the heart, vikshamana, waiting to see, api, in spite of, na, never, apashyam, saw him, avitripta, without being satisfied, eva, like, atura, agreed. Translation together. I desire to see again the transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved. I'd like to read the purport.
There is no mechanical process to see the form of the Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. We cannot demand the Lord to be present before our vision, just as we cannot demand the sun to rise whenever we like. The sun rises out of his own accord, so also the Lord is pleased to be present out of his causeless mercy. One should simply await the opportune moment and go on discharging his prescribed duty in devotional service to the Lord. Narada Muni thought that the Lord could be seen again by the same mechanical process, which was successful in the first attempt. But in spite of his utmost endeavor, he could not make the second attempt successful. The Lord is completely independent of all obligations. He can simply be bound up by the tie of unalloyed devotion, nor is he visible or perceivable by our material senses. When he pleases, being satisfied with the sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he may be seen out of his own accord.
It's just the last sentence that says, when he pleases, being satisfied with the sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord, then he may be seen out of his own accord. So it's like it's still a maybe. So it totally depends on Krishna. Let's read the translations for the next two verses. I'll just read the next one. Seeing my attempts in that lonely place, the personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all mundane description, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words just to mitigate my grief. O Narada, the Lord spoke, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. So yeah, have you ever had experiences where you've felt Krishna more than usual? And then what happens afterwards? Remembering, yeah. Have you ever tried to recreate that moment? Has anyone ever done that? Yeah, it's kind of like that when Narada Muni too sees Krishna, and then in his first attempt, Krishna gives him his, Krishna appears, he gives his darshan, and Narada was like, "Oh wow, that was great. Let me do it again." And it's trying really hard. It's not working. I always love this purport. It says Prabhupada says that just how the sun rises out of its own accord. Similarly, Krishna appears in our hearts, and so it's true that there's so many processes in this world, right? There's a process to to make paper. There's a process to manufacture things, all kinds of things. There's a process to extract gasoline from the earth. There's all these processes, and you do it step by step, and there's a good chance of that you'll get what you're working towards. In Krishna consciousness, it's not there is a process, but it's not as mechanical as these other processes, where you just pull something out of something else. And the process of Krishna consciousness is hearing and chanting. You hear about Krishna, you chant about Krishna, you chant the holy name, you do japa, the chanting of the beads and so forth. And so when one does that, the heart becomes clearer. As Lord Chaitanya says, the mirror of the mind starts getting cleaned. It's like when you enter a room and it's totally dirty, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna start cleaning, and or maybe it doesn't look that dirty. Actually, it doesn't look as dirty. It's dirty, but it doesn't look. You're like, okay, I'll just do a few things, it'll be fine. And then you move the couch, and then you take the rug off the floor, and then you move the bed, and there's all these things that's underneath. So, and then you're like, oh my God, this room needs a lot of cleaning. And so the chanting is like that. Initially when we do japa, we're like, oh, I'm a good person. I'm a decent person. I brush my teeth in the night. So I'm pretty good at dental hygiene. And so I must be a decent person. In Kali Yuga, in this age, everybody thinks that we are decent, and everybody else, we are the hero of this movie, and everybody else is supporting character, and that even that they're not that good at it, even though they just have supporting roles. So generally, people think we all think like that. No, at least I do. But then when you chant and you realize actually Krishna is the hero of this movie, and we are all supporting actors. And then so when we start chanting that, the mirror of the mind starts getting clean, and then we see when the mirror gets clean, then we see the exact reflection of our heart and mind, and then we're like, okay, there's a lot here, and that's when real japa begins. That's when real japa begins, where we see, oh wow, actually my heart's not that clean. And Krishna is so great that he's still giving me this opportunity to perform devotional service. And there's a lot of gratitude. And it's not that we think, oh, we are so fallen. And sometimes we do feel like that perhaps, but it's not that we're just totally low self-esteem and bashing ourselves every day. But it's more so that wow, I have these misgivings in my heart, but Krishna is so kind that that he has given this process. Krishna is so great. That's the focus. That Krishna is so great, and he's kindly appeared in my life. And let me take advantage of this. That Krishna is here, and I get to perform devotion service. So yeah, and it's interesting the songs by the Acharya, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur. What's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's mood often in his prayers? Remember, what's his often is the common theme? Yeah, yearning. There's a yearning. Yes, John. Yeah, he feels super unworthy. Like that's his expression. And so, and it doesn't mean that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had super low esteem. He was actually a very, very accomplished person. He was a district magistrate, and he was a great devotee. He was managing the Jagannath Puri temple and so forth. But in his heart, he sees how Krishna is so great, and so compared to him, we're just so minuscule. And from Krishna's perspective, even though we might be so minuscule, but Krishna feels also very grateful to have us in his life, which is amazing, actually. Yes, like Krishna doesn't really need anything. He's God. What does God need? God doesn't need our wealth or our little offerings, our little offerings that we make. But Krishna is such a kind and grateful person that he actually feels grateful. Like, oh, here's my little Carly, and she's doing japa this morning. She's chanting in kirtan. She's singing Guru Puja. So Krishna he's grateful. He sees, oh, he's my friend, thinking of me. It's like, yeah, like our friend. When our friend calls us out of the blue, we're like, oh wow, that's so sweet. Or they call regularly. Like so Krishna feels like, oh, this is so nice. This person's calling me this morning. So yeah, so that's Krishna's mood. And Krishna is very sweet and kind. And yeah, it all depends on Krishna. It does like us, well, like Krishna, we have independence. So Krishna is supremely independent. There's no way that one can just bind Krishna by some rules or some processes. Sometimes you see in the Vedic text, it's like, if you chant these many number of names of God at this hour, and if you eat this sesame seed at 2:42 a.m. before Ekadashi, you will go back to Godhead. I was like, okay, I'm just making this up, by the way. It doesn't say like that, but just trying to give you the mood of it. There are things like that. If you do the exact thing at the exact moment, exact place, then you'll go back to Godhead, and all that's great. All that's there so that one does those devotion activities and makes progress, but it's not a mechanical process. Like you can't just. That's normally the mood of demigod worship. The demigods are obliged to give you what you ask for if you do the process exactly properly, because they're not supremely independent. They're bound by laws of nature, and Krishna is not bound by laws of nature. Yeah. So with Krishna, it's a relationship of love. The love and devotion that we offer, and that it reminds me of that pastime with Lord Ram in Ramayana, where they were building the bridge, and Hanuman was carrying these humongous boulders, and he was putting it in the ocean to make a bridge. And the squirrel was coming, and the squirrel was just throwing some sand or little pebbles or whatever. And Hanuman was like carrying this big boulder, and he's like, "Hey, get out of my way! I gotta drop this huge boulder in the ocean." And Lord Ram said, "No. He said this little squirrel is doing an equal amount of service as you are, even though it might not look like it, because it's the devotion that counts. So whatever it may be, small or big service, there should be that that intense devotion, like I'm doing this for Krishna. So it doesn't matter what the amount of service is. So yeah, the process of devotion service, it really, as Prabhupada said, let's see, when he pleases, being satisfied with the sincere attempt of devotional service, depending completely on the mercy of the Lord. So we make our sincere attempts, we make our sincere attempts to do Krishna lunch. We do make our sincere attempt to attract people to the programs. We throw flyers at them, 100 flyers at one person, every person in the line. Sincere attempts. So yeah, we sincerely chant on campus. We do all those things, and then it's up to Krishna. What happens after that. And the real result of preaching is that Krishna, comes in our heart and lightens us from within. And so that's the real result. And then when we keep doing it and we keep sincerely practicing Krishna consciousness, then our heart gets clean and Krishna sends people. Krishna sends people because he sees that these devotees are sincerely practicing Krishna consciousness, and I can send these other souls, these, as Prabhupada calls it, there are many innocent souls. There are those who are a little very averse to God consciousness, and then there's those who are just innocent, and they have some interest in Krishna consciousness. So then Krishna sends those people, And I always remember Kaylee. I don't know how many of you know her. We were driving back from Atlanta to Gainesville after a trip. And then we were also late because once in a while we get late on a trip. That was the one time I can remember. And we were coming back, and we just stopped at some random what's it called, those rest stops. And she saw Bucky's, yeah. Oh, Bucky. And then she saw some of the devotees doing yoga. They were just doing stretching, actually. And she was like, "Oh, you guys do yoga?" And they were like, "Yeah, we do bhakti yoga." And then she just followed us here. And she was going to go to Miami, so it was kind of on the way. So she became a devotee. So you never know. It's like, you just never know. And so, yeah, if one practices Krishna consciousness sincerely and is trying to attempt, Prabhupada did so many attempts, so if you read the little, if you, hear his story, he sincerely tried for like, I don't know how many years was it, 20 years. From the 40s, he started doing Bhakti Gadit. Finally, he came to America in 1966. And even the first year was a lot of struggle. And or first few years were struggling. And then, he was sincerely trying. And if you look from a material perspective, it's like, you look at Prabhupada, you were like, what are you doing? It's been 20 years, just do something else, like it's not working, And but he kept at it. Of course, he kept changing, strategies, and he kept trying to come to America and so forth. But yeah, if you just look at it from an external point of view, it's like, just do something else. This is clearly not working. But Prabhupada kept at it because he had faith in his guru's instructions. And then, yeah, that's why the little myth is called like a lifetime in preparation. And so Prabhupada was preparing to come to America. And then finally Krishna, was preparing for the right moment in the right place at the right time. There was the hippie movement, and everybody was looking for something different. And so, yeah, and then all these people came. All these people were just waiting for Prabhupada to come to America. And so, yeah, sometimes, we make sincere attempts to preach or, other thing and whatever else. And, it might look like it's not working, but we just keep at it. And of course, we change strategies sometimes, of course. But yeah, but it's the sincere attempt of devotional service that really matters. And Krishna is making this point in these verses that Krishna will only come out of his own accord and in due course of time, just like how the sun rises. Yeah. Any thoughts on this? So far,
Just really quickly, I was joking about the Bucky's thing, but actually it reminded me of one time when we were on a trip this summer. We were at Bucky's, and me, Bruce, and Brandon were walking out to go meet the rest of the devotees. We're walking out of the Bucky's. We're gonna go meet the rest of the devotees up the hill. And this guy stopped us and said, "What are you guys all about?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're monks." We just kind of gave him the generic pitch. And we're like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, really? So you guys, what's your favorite Bible verse?" And everybody spit out a Bible verse. And he's like, "So you guys are monks?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "So you guys don't do nothing bad? No sex, no nothing?" We're like, "No, man, we're really practicing."
We don't even drink coffee.
Yeah, I think I said that. I said, "Yeah, we don't do caffeine or anything." He was like, "Okay, can I pray with you guys really quick?" We had a nice prayer circle. But what he said was, I could tell you guys were doing something real because he looked at Bruce's face. That's all he did. He said, "I saw the way that Bruce was walking and looking, and I could tell that you guys were spiritual." So the example you gave of like everybody doing yoga, sometimes even just your presence, can make an effect on somebody. And we had an effective connection with a Christian guy.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
that is far as clearing the mirror of the mind and clearing your heart and your mind. We're not the material body. We're not the material mind either. That kind of helps me when I think about that. That's not what we're not that.
Thoughts, comments on this?
I'm reflecting on getting into this mood that I'm the doer, and we can get discouraged when what we're trying to do isn't working because we're thinking that we are the doer. This is something I've seen in my experience, in my attempts to share Krishna consciousness, and forgetting that Krishna is the one actually who controls the results. I'm thinking that especially with new technologies that are coming out, they can seem so appealing to our minds, like artificial intelligence. I've been looking into more, and sure, it's really helpful, but I can see how easy it is to get distracted and think, oh yeah, that's going to solve the problem. And if I just depend on AI, if I just depend on this new technology or this new trick, whatever, that's going to allow me to have success in my life or in my project, whatever. And so I'm just seeing the dangerous influence of these technologies and how it can distract us from Krishna actually being the one in control.
Yeah.
Playing off of what Privat just said, I feel the same thing. Very different story, very much about the physical body and material things. Though I often witness myself getting caught and thinking about these material traps and this sense of doership, and the next thing is, this is going to be very good. I'll start eating this. Oh yes, that's going to change everything. Very nice. It's like this dependency on something material instead of on Krishna. And I see this unfolding in front of me. It's just like getting covered in mud. And I pray to not be so caught in the illusion. And so I wonder, how do we transcend that illusion while also being so actively surrounded by it?
Yeah, it's hard because oftentimes we're doing so many things, like in case I'm making plans to eat something, it's gonna make me healthy and so forth. Or when you're doing projects, we're planning so much, especially when you're doing like a bigger project. It's like you got a plan, you got strategies and so forth. So it's very normal to think like, well, that's what I do this and this will give certain results, right? I want to say, like, it goes back to our japa, actually, our calling to Krishna in the morning, and because that really gives us a foundation to see that actually even everything in this world, well, of course, definitely the things we eat comes from Krishna. That's an easy one, but also like all these ideas, strategies, all these brilliant ideas, everything, all the resources that are there in the world, it comes from Krishna, actually. Funny story, not about a devotee, but it's interesting. There was a scientist. He was trying to figure out the chemical structure of benzene, and he just could not figure it out. And he was doing it for a long time, and then one day while trying to figure it out, he fell asleep, and then he dreamed of a snake that curled up in 6 spots, tail to head. And then he woke up and realized, oh my God, that could be a stable structure for benzene. So it's like, what is it? It's the super soul guiding him. He didn't just dream. I mean, he dreamt of it, but it's coming from super soul. So even for some regular person, super soul can inspire and give ideas. So what are speak of devotees? Like Krishna is very actively involved in our lives, and these, have you ever experienced where like, you feel like, I should check on this, or like, or you need something and all of a sudden it just shows up. One day I had to, deliver something, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta take all these boxes. And then I heard a knock on the door, and then this Prabhu was like, oh, do you need help with something? Like, yeah, I do actually. I was crunching, I had a time crunch. I was like, thank you, Krishna. That's not any time. I'm sure all of you have experienced different things where, things just happen. It's just not in our control. And the more we practice Krishna consciousness, in due course of time, there's this term called Shastra Chakshu. Shastra is scriptures, and Chakshu means to vision or to see. And so the more we read Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we'll be able to see the world through the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the Bhagavatam, it shows how often, so many things that happen in this world are just because of Krishna. It might look like that was Indra's example in the Govardhan Puja. Indra thinks he's the controller, he's giving this rain, and how dare these little puny little minions not worship me. And so, but he forgets that actually everything comes from Krishna. And so that's why the Bhagavatam is there, to give us that vision, that filter of Krishna consciousness. And so, it comes in time, and it does take practice actually. And sometimes we stumble, even after realizing that actually comes, sometimes we have realizations, but then we stumble and we're like, oh yeah, actually, Krishna's in charge. And with Indra, it's interesting. Indra gets bashed left and right in the Bhagavatam, but Indra is our example. We are little Indras. Sometimes devotees like, oh yeah, this guy, Indra, he didn't have it figured out. We know Krishna's God. Didn't you read the Srimad Bhagavatam? But actually, like, Prabhu, having read the Bhagavad Gita. But actually, Lord Indra is such a great devotee that he's giving us a live example of how we behave, and we can take a lot of inspiration and a lot of reflection from it. And Indra does these things where, he doesn't, like, one time his guru came and he didn't even bother to get up. And then the next thing all his kingdom was taken away. And then he's like, oh, Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry. And so it just, all these pastimes, they show that we have to serve other devotees and see Krishna. And so it takes practice, it takes time, it takes like a paradigm shift in our mentality. And but not just that, but the japa, like chanting Krishna's names. That's what really does it over time. Yeah, that's true.
This reminds me of a quote I heard recently. Our usual mentality, our conditioned mentality can be, I'm too busy to spend sufficient time on japa. I've got to drive and chant, or I need to text and chant. I've got too much, while I'm chanting, I need to be planning my day because I don't have time. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
But I heard this quote recently that really struck me. It was from Martin Luther, the great religious reformer. He said, I've got so much to do today, I need to spend an extra hour on my knees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not that I need to cut into my japa time because I have so much to do. No, I need to chant really well, and maybe even more, because I have so much that I'm depending on Krishna for.
Yeah. It reminds me, I was thinking of this yesterday. I don't know if it's a true story, but this businessman goes to a monk who teaches meditation, and then the monk is like, yo, you gotta, try to meditate for 10 minutes. The businessman goes, oh, I don't have even 10 minutes. And he goes, in that case, you should meditate for an hour. Because you're just, you can't even meditate for 10 minutes. So, and you have so much to do. So,
I was realizing recently when I was watching a kirtan that it seems like what attracts people is, like, for example, the example of doing yoga in the park or seeing Bruce's face at a Buc-ee's is that when people are already in the connection, because I've seen sometimes when we're like not really feeling connected with Krishna and we look out and we try to connect and share with other people, it's like people kind of run away. They're like, they can see you don't have anything to give them, or just that, like, you're trying to get something from them because you're looking for that connection. But when you feel satisfied in your connection with Krishna, when you're feeling that connection, then people are automatically drawn to you and they kind of see that and feel that and they're like, okay, yeah, what's happening here? And then also, no, that's good.
All right. Any other thoughts before we go ahead? Yes,
Thank you, Guru. There was something about Jackson's question that what everybody kindly responded to that reminded me of, aside from good japa, there's this need to see the world in a certain way that shift. I think you mentioned the paradigm shift of it's not for me, it's for the others. It's for Krishna ultimately. So unless we can operate in a way, like put the different lenses on, it's going to be really difficult to bring the mind back. And so what it takes actually is to become caretaker, custodian of everything around us, and especially in relationships. Because, here we are, boys and girls, in such a close proximity. We could start to see others also as something that's for my pleasure, for my satisfaction. But in reality, when we understand everything belongs to Krishna, so we don't want to cook with a hand in a fire, because when we do that, no matter how good your rounds are, you're gonna get burned. So yeah, it's important what happens between our rounds. I guess it's called sadachar, or the subtotal of our activities. So between our mornings, what are we contemplating? How do we see things around us? If I walk by, there's a trash bag. The curious is still there. I saw it yesterday, but I didn't pick it up. It's still there. So when I walk, it's like, do I pick it up, or I think it's Krishna's job to maintain us. And funny thing, Krishna says here, I regret the time you will be away from me. I regret the time that you will not be completely, your heart won't be completely surrendered or given to me, as mine is. Krishna's heart is completely given and surrendered to us. So Krishna is regretting, and I'm walking dull-headed. I have also a question from Nartana Priya. Can we have her question also?
Let's argue. What's the question?
She said, well, thank you very, sorry, this is somebody else. Nartana, thank you for the class, Shruti Prabhu. Sharing Krishna with others is the most beautiful service. However, sometimes when I'm preaching, I feel alone. How can I practically curb these feelings of loneliness?
It makes me think of Prabhupada. Yeah, Prabhupada said, he said, I'm not alone when he was in New York City. He felt alone too, actually. He did feel it. But, he would say, like, I'm not alone. And somebody had said, oh, you're alone here. And he said, no, I'm not alone. I have my spiritual master with me. So that's the solace of the preacher out there on the field. That, they have the instruction of the spiritual master to preach. And Krishna is there. They're never alone, really. Never alone. And I was reading this, Rupa Goswami, this verse. Anyways, it was a reflection. But anyways, Rupa Goswami was saying that, when you have Krishna, it's really nice. Of course, you have Krishna. But when you don't have Krishna, it's even better, because then the three worlds become Krishna. Because then you can see anywhere and everywhere, and you can, you miss Krishna so much, you think of Krishna so much. But sometimes, when we don't, that's why there's a sweetness in separation. Because now the money now is going to only think of where is Krishna, and we see that in the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Mora as Nardamani. And when Krishna is not there, then the gopis, the mind goes to like, where is Krishna? Try to find, whatever you see, different things you see reminds you of Krishna. Like, oh, Krishna used to like has his peacock. You see the peacocks, you think of the peacock feather, so forth. So yeah, so one can service in separation is the highest. Then even for the spiritual master, the Vani, the instruction of the spiritual master is a lot higher than the Vapu, the physical proximity to one spiritual master. And so following the instruction of the spiritual master is higher, and it's more rewarding. And so that is the wealth of a preacher who's by themselves preaching out there those instructions, and actually one becomes more dear to the spiritual master, and the spiritual master becomes more dear to the disciple, one who is sincerely trying to fulfill the guru's instructions. Yeah, so maybe those some thoughts. It's a good question, but we need to move on. Actually, I would have liked to get more input on this, but we'll go on to our discussion for the group. So yeah, this semester has been great. We only have about 2-3 weeks in November, one more week in December, and then we'll go back to God. I don't know. Well, might. But yeah, thanks to everybody for pulling through this semester. And it's been really sweet, especially Jonathan for managing the Krishnalans on the campus. And of course, everybody else, Advaita and Kalindi Proof for managing everything as usual. Of course, Tulasya. Everybody look at Tulasya. For doing so much for all the girls and the boys, and Stephen too, of course, yeah, for the boys. And all of you, of course, yeah, for doing so much. Haribo! Haribo! Push. Oh, yay! Especially for pushing through the preaching programs this semester. Was that? What did you say? Adi Shampoo, yeah. But yeah, thanks to everybody for pushing through. And Carmen! And Carmen. Yeah, thanks to everybody for just pushing on, preaching and serving and so forth. And yeah, semester's almost come to an end. But yeah, I just wanted to bring a few things. And the first thing actually I had on my list was japa. So yeah, it gives us so much strength when we are able to do japa in the mornings. And so it's really nice when we all are able to do some japa in the temple room. So yeah, I would encourage all of you to do at least half an hour in the temple room from 6:30 to 7. And with all of us, it's really nice. And again, yeah, we talked about japa, and yeah, the more we do it, and the more intently we do it, the more Krishna cleans our heart, and that's the case with us. And yeah, the japa, the chanting, and the outreach, they go hand in hand. Yeah, they're not. The outreach enlivens our personal spiritual practice, personal spiritual practice, allowance of outreach. So it goes hand in hand. But yeah. What else? So a few more things on the list, and one was, yeah, if in general, like, again, if there's any concerns, please talk to your ashram leaders, and feel free to bring up anything of any sort. And even if you're disturbed or whatever, just Nate, don't come to me, please. But everybody else can come to me. Yeah, any concerns that you have, please bring it up right to our ashram leader, and instead of not bringing it up and being in distress, just feel free to bring it up. And that's one thing. And Tulasi is so kind. She has 4 ears. She can hear all your sorrows and worries and mitigate all your distress. Yeah. And what else? And the semester has been good so far in terms of cleanliness. Also, we had Josh and I forget the husband's name. Sorry, Adam. Yeah, Josh, Adam, and Naveen. They've done some landscaping, and we've done some mock cleanups and so forth. So everything's been good. But yeah, the general principle is wherever you find something, put it back there after you clean it, and just leave the place cleaner after after yourself. If you use the Bhakti House kitchen, whatever you use, just put it back where you found it. Make sure the place is clean after if you use it. But yeah, just those basic things, and so yeah, this cleanliness in general. And so I guess there's been some issues with the side porch being used in the night. What is the time again? When the curfew time? 9 p.m. on Monday to Sunday to Thursday, right? 9 p.m. So yeah, because the side porch is just so many devotees now are close to the dish room. The dish room used to be inside, it's outside now. So yeah, our request is try to after 9 p.m. Try to do whatever you need to do before 9 p.m. in that area, side porch area, the dish room area. Otherwise, that's why those, if you have not noticed, like you have those 2 rooms boarded up a bit because of the sound. And so I try to do it before 9 p.m. Otherwise it's still hard for the devotees who are staying there in the night. And I think you lock up the dish room at 9 p.m. also. Yeah. So anything you need. Just to try to do it before 9 p.m. And then Friday and Saturday it's stayed up a little later at 10 p.m. right? Yeah. Was that 9:45? Okay. But yeah. And ashram life, that's what ashram life normally means. It means it's simple living. You go to bed early, wake up early, the prasadam is provided, you do service, and all that is there so that one can just focus on spiritual practice, growing in spiritual life. And that's the main purpose of ashram life. And that's what lays the foundation for a good grihastha life. And sooner or later, everybody find a spouse, they get married because they want to worship Krishna together. And so, but to be able to do that, one should have a really strong ashram experience. So that's why Krishna House is there, so one can have a strong ashram experience. And so maybe we've talked about this before, but yeah, Krishna House, it's a co-ed environment. We are all here, men and women, and but the goal of ashram life is not to necessarily get into relationships prematurely. What happens when you enter into a relationship while you're still in the ashram? What happens to your spiritual? Any guesses? You're distracted. What else? You get kicked out. Not necessarily. Depends on the situation. Depends on how grave the actions are. But yeah, or you get get a little intervention, I guess. Let's say that at least. What else? Just try. Was that? After you get Dr. Buster. But yeah. And we have this small period of time in our life, and we can take advantage of ashram life, because once you get older, normally people want their own space or their own foods and all, or different. That's normally a sign grihastha life. You need your own space and so forth. You need to have your own schedule and so forth, which is fine. And it's just when we are younger and especially like, and that's why the college years, that's why it's called bachelors originally. It was the brahmacharya years. The colleges were established by monks, and all these Harvard and Cambridge, they were established by monks actually. So the bachelor 18 to 22, or a little more, is for brahmacharya. It's for celibate life, single celibate life. So one can just really be focused on growing spiritually and lay a foundation for the next 30 years of where you're gonna have a job, a career, and wife, a spouse, kids, and so forth. We approved or something.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's so special that we have this ability to spend full time focusing on bhakti, because I'm in touch with some devotees who are working full time. They don't even have children yet, but for them to manage a trip to Vrindavan to spend 2 weeks, like Radhika even, I was talking to her. She's doing her best, but you can only get. It's tough when you're working full time. You can only get so much time. So while we have this opportunity, it's very special.
Yeah, it's okay. Radhika gives big donation. She's excused. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's also true actually. When you can't give time to serve, then you give donation. Yeah, it's true. So that's the goal of ashram life. So yeah, and our minds will be so disturbed because sometimes the mind is like, oh, I like this today, I like that today, I really like this person, and it's normal to have all kinds of infatuations and all that. It's fine, and it just takes spiritual practice. That's what Haridas Thakur's story was, that he just said, let me just finish my japa. So when your mind says, I want to get married today or tomorrow or this weekend, you're like, all right, let me just do my japa and I'll come back to you. So just let your mind, when you do that, that's the secret in spiritual life. When the mind gives all kinds of ideas. And again, it's not that marriage is discouraged, but it's just that the purpose of Krishna is to train devotees to grow spiritually and be grounded spiritually, and even also financially, really, like one has to plan for that kind of stuff. And so one has to do those things so that they can enter Grihastha ashram, the next ashram in life, very responsibly, and not let it be a blunder, because there's so many factors of that involve a successful marriage. So Krishna is just focus on spiritual life and so forth. And so to that extent, we have the rule of three, where men and women you don't go with the object of your what's that? What would be the word? Object of contemplation, right? Yeah, contemplating the object of your senses. So you don't go with that person, somewhere just on, let's go on a walk or something. Just don't do that. Just bring a third rule with you. Just kidding. It's not the rule of three is not the real rule of third wheel. You don't just bring along somebody just so that they can walk behind you guys. And so we normally do things in groups and so forth, And so that's the general idea, that Krishna is just growing spiritually. And especially when you know that, oh, maybe there's some attraction, talk to your ashram leaders. They're not gonna kick you out. Maybe Nate will, because he said this. But but talk to your ashram leader. It's fine. It's fine to reveal your mind and so forth. But the idea is that, okay, my mind is giving me these things. Okay, let me see how I can deal with it in a Krishna conscious manner. And let me see, and of course that normally means then, that you want to enter Grihastha life at some point. So let me see how I can prepare for it, for married life, in a Krishna conscious way. So that when I do become a householder, how will I have Krishna in the center? Okay. So it takes time and practice, but I was listening to a Prabhupada lecture a while ago, and there's that famous word, Shitashna Sukha Dukha. How does Matras Prashishtakante and Shitashna Sukha Dukha. So it's like the summer, like just how one has to tolerate the summer and winter months. Similarly, one has to tolerate happiness and one has to tolerate happiness and distress in this life. So it's interesting, in the lecture, Prabhupada was giving somewhat different translation, or yeah, it was interesting. So, Arjuna was speaking, and then Krishna speaks, and in the context of the verse, Krishna says, "You have this material body, and because you have this body, you must tolerate." So it's like, yeah, the material body creates so many anxieties or worries or desires and so forth. But since we have these bodies, yeah, we have to have a little tolerance, and so we have to tolerate a little bit. And at that time, yeah, the other devotees are our shelter, japa is our shelter, especially the ashram leaders. They're the ones who are there for you, and so forth. And there's other senior devotees that have Veda Prabhu, and you can go knock on his door at 1 a.m. Actually, Adisham, he loves when you knock on his door at 1 a.m. Just don't bang on his windows. He loves it. Yeah. But yeah, just go to them, go to them and reveal your mind. Of course, I'm always there if you want to not be unique. You've been banned. Was that you've done your quota for like 5 years? But yeah. but yeah, we're always there for you. All right. But any thoughts or comments on any of that so far? All right, so yeah, we talked about japa, curfew time, relationships, and did you want to talk a little bit about Krishna lunch, Jonathan? Yeah, go ahead. I know you had some points in mind.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I'll keep it pretty brief because I definitely want to eat some breakfast, and y'all make sure every day to thank Kiara for making a wonderful shot of breakfast for us every morning to keep us fueled up for all of our service. Yeah, this has been a great semester. And I feel like we've been kind of battling uphill to overcome some challenges of big customer drop because we made some adjustments. But I'm seeing that the key to really keeping Krishna Lunch strong in presence and in reputation and in power is our connection with the students. And I'm just so amazed how everybody's been so strong at that. That when the guests come, we're giving them our undivided attention and making sure that every single person by the end of their experience through the line and to the drink stand and all the way to their seat, they feel fulfilled and excited about the food that they're going to eat and the interactions that they had with all of the devotees, and to just continue to keep in mind these are students and we don't know, what backgrounds they're from or what they believe in. Their minds a lot of times just on school, getting from one class to the next. And we have like 15 minutes to give them a little piece of bliss, a little piece of happiness. And you can see it in their face. You can see it from when they first come to when they sit down. You check with the times I've checked with people, hey, how's everything? Everybody's happy with Krishna Lunch. So that's what's most important about it, is that we are there to serve the students and we're there to serve them the Lord's sanctified food so that they get some spiritual nourishment while they're, getting bombarded with speculative knowledge throughout the day. A couple things that help to keep the Krishna Lunch organized and efficient. The number one is going to be the punctuality. In order to be there on time, being there on time is 10:30. That's when the truck gets there. I try to get the truck there a little bit earlier to beat the students rushing out. They rush out. The bell gets out at like 10:26, and they all flood out. So if that truck's not out the parking lot, wheels rolling by 10:18, we get into a big student traffic on foot traffic. So, but on time for everybody is 10:30 latest, and that is so important because right when we get there, we need to start unloading. And if you're 5 minutes late or 7 minutes late or even 10 minutes late, there's already been a lot of action happening with the unloading. And a lot of times, it's just been on the truck driver and maybe the one, person who's always there early. So, in order for us to, kind of help each other out, it's really important to get there on time. There's some people that have other services here that prevent them from getting there at 10:30, and I'll know about that. Stay in communication with me about that, and that can get worked out. So that's the biggest thing, because also the sooner we get set up, we have a little bit of time to have a powwow, and Bruce, read an inspirational Prasadam quote, and we're not as much rush and anxiety. Also, when the students, we're talking to them, that we're not having side conversations while we have students directly in front of us, especially really, really deep philosophical or theological conversations that they may not understand, or it may not be something that they're compatible or cool with. Like, we really need to pay attention to not be talking about, you're gonna reincarnate and come back as a dog and stuff like that, when there's people standing right there with their plate in front of them, Yeah, or Lord Chaitanya having ecstatic symptoms, or drinking guru foot water. None of that stuff.
Did you drink your guru
Yeah.
water today?
Keep the esoteric knowledge, keep it in your pocket. But we can talk about that stuff with each other. The Krishna lunch is also a good time for us to all connect. But when the students are there, and when we have a line formed, and when we have a little rush, it's got to be with them. Has to. So that's one big important thing. Everybody's been doing really good about that recently. I just want to say, and we just always need to keep the attention on them. Please don't leave your station or swap stations with other servers without notifying the manager first. And that's because it may not seem like a big deal right now. When we have a long line, if somebody jumps off for a restroom break, or they have a whim to go, preach with somebody or something, what happens is the person next to you has to cover your station, or you've decided you've made the management call on who should switch and cover your station for you. And it draws a slack in the line, and also makes everybody wonder, where are the other servers at, and it can cause us to, it would make us suffer